Julian Ford was a masterpiece. I figured if I was going to have a first love, it might as well be him. I decided early on that even if it ended, I'd have no regrets. So I pursued him relentlessly. At first, he was caught off guard, then intrigued, and finally he gave in, but not without setting strict conditions. We could date, but marriage was off the table. Graduation would mark the end, no exceptions. I agreed immediately. For 3 years, we had what looked like the ideal romance. And on graduation day, just as we had agreed, I was ready to end it. That's when he changed the rules. I was stunned. We agreed. Graduation means we break up. The conversation fell apart completely. Julian, who usually carried himself with an air of unshakable confidence, lowered his head and let out a bitter laugh. "Summer Haze," he said, "you should pray our paths never cross again." From that day, I made it a point to avoid him. But sometimes, life has a funny way of forcing people back together. Julian and I always had an unspoken agreement. On campus, we were a couple. Off campus, during breaks, we were just two strangers, each returning to our separate worlds. No messages, no calls, no curiosity about the other's life. We compartmentalized our relationship perfectly. I assumed this arrangement would last until graduation. But one summer after sophomore year, the break stretched longer than usual, 80 days. Before leaving campus, he asked, "Will you miss me?" I hugged him tightly, playing the part. "Of course. I'll miss you like crazy." He hugged me back and kissed the top of my head, careful not to say anything that might make him vulnerable. I admired his practicality. His world was different from mine, and we both knew this relationship had an expiration date. I was just someone to experience a sheltered, intense college romance with, nothing more. On campus, I was his girlfriend. Off campus, I knew better than to intrude. I followed the rules without complaint. What I didn't expect was that he would be the one to start bending them. That summer, he texted me, saying he was returning early, weeks before our scheduled return. I teased him. "Already missing me?" No reply came. From then on, any long break came with a question. "Want to go somewhere?" Most of the time I said yes. We traveled together, watching the stars in the Joshua Tree Desert and sunsets in the Florida Keys. I lost myself in the scenery, only to be startled by Julian's sudden, demanding kisses. He liked to be in control physically, but every time things got too far, I would halt him with a simple stop. He would pause, frustrated but respectful, and eventually, without words, he would go to cool off, returning to hold me instead. There was only one exception. One night, he saw a message from a friend on my phone. "Who's this?" he asked. "A friend from Charlotte," I said honestly. That evening, his jealousy came alive. He pinned my wrists gently but firmly, body pressing against mine. "I don't want this," I whispered. "Why not?" he demanded, voice tense. He was usually poised, prideful, and composed, but this jealousy showed a different side of him, possessive, impulsive, irrational. I never needed to explain fully. Julian's hold on me would never go deeper than the limits I set. He knew it, and eventually he respected it. Still, after that night, every intimate moment carried an undercurrent of challenge, a subtle test of boundaries, as if he were contending with something or someone I couldn't see. Junior year, second semester, and the date of our pre-planned breakup loomed closer. The thought of it made my chest ache, so I began preparing myself, mentally stepping back piece by piece, bracing for the inevitable. That year, Julian organized a trip to England. On the second day, still groggy from jet lag, I was rudely awakened. A group of people barged into our hotel room, dressed me in a bridal gown, and transformed my face into a flawless version of a bride. Before I could even process what was happening, I was being led to a horse-drawn carriage waiting outside. I had no idea when or how Julian had orchestrated all this. The ceremony took place in Canterbury Cathedral, officiated by a real priest. There were no guests, just the two of us. A wedding that carried no legal weight, yet it felt significant in the moment. When we exchanged rings, I finally understood why Julian had broken tradition for his birthday gift that year, a simple ring. He had wanted me to have something to offer him now, something tangible for this fleeting, fake wedding. It was all a charade. We both knew it. Yet, that night, as Julian tried to retreat to his usual cold shower after our intimate moments, I stopped him. I pulled him back and kissed him fiercely. A shiver ran through him. "Summer," he breathed, voice trembling. "It's our wedding night," I whispered, pressing my lips to his. Don't ruin it. In that moment, I surrendered. For just this night, I allowed myself to be reckless. For once, I was Julian Ford's bride. What I thought would be a one-time rebellion became repeated. Some boundaries, once crossed, never fully returned to their original place. Julian and I spiraled, reckless and unrestrained. I convinced myself it was just a final, wild memory, a way to make the last months count. Eventually, my return flight forced the inevitable. We needed a proper farewell. I met him at a quiet restaurant near campus, and, trying to steel myself, I ended things. I expected calm, graceful acceptance, his usual composed demeanor. Instead, he simply stared at me and said, "No." I froze. "No? What do you mean, no?" He looked me in the eye. "Summer, I don't want to break up." My mind spun. Julian was not a man to break promises. Honor and loyalty defined him, and I had always trusted that our breakup was certain. His sudden change left me unmoored. When had he decided differently? How had I missed it? Panic rose in my chest. I had never considered a future with him. Graduation and our breakup seemed the perfect ending. His reversal threw everything into chaos. I couldn't speak, only stared, disbelief frozen on my face. A rare urgency crept into his voice. "I know what you're afraid of. Summer, just give me 5 years. 5 years from now, no Ford family member will interfere in our marriage. We'll have a proper wedding, invite everyone, get a legal marriage license, and show the world we belong together." He looked at me, pleading, and asked, "So, what do you say?" Guilt made me look away. My voice faltered. But we had a deal. Graduation meant we break up. He blinked, confusion flashing across his features. "What?" I took a deep breath and laid it out, needing clarity. "I want to break up." His gaze was sharp, intense enough to pierce. Leaning forward, he radiated a quiet menace. "Why?" he asked, voice low, almost lifeless, daring me to confirm my decision. I let all my thoughts spill. "Because we're from different worlds. I don't have big ambitions. I just want a peaceful life. I don't want your family picking me apart for who I am. I don't want to navigate your world's social maze. I never planned a future with you." Speaking aloud, I realized I was cruel. He was mapping out a future for us while I had been plotting my escape. It was like standing on opposite sides of a battlefield. He ready to fight, me ready to flee. "I've said everything," I murmured, scrambling to leave. "I'm going. Take care." Suddenly, his hand clamped onto my arm, unyielding. My heart pounded. He stayed seated, looking up at me, radiating a cold intensity that made me shiver. "If you never saw a future with me, why did you give yourself to me?" I forced a casual tone, pulling free. "It wasn't a big deal." He flinched, shattered, then gave a bitter, self-mocking smile. Rising, he towered over me, pride intact. "Summer Hayes, you'd better pray we never meet again. If we do, I don't know what I'd do." My face remained impassive, but my palms were slick. A wave of regret washed over me. I should never have been involved. That day, I fled the restaurant, ran back to Charlotte, and avoided New York City at all costs. I thought I would never see Julian Ford again. But, as they say, the best-laid plans rarely survive contact with reality. My cousin Chloe was marrying into wealth, and she invited me to her wedding in New York City. I initially refused politely, unwilling to travel for the occasion. But then, the groom's family reviewed the guest list and circled only one name, mine. Apparently, I was the only person from Chloe's side considered acceptable. Her own parents were excluded. Only I and a few bridesmaids would attend. Chloe's mother came to me personally, pleading that I represent the family and support Chloe. With no choice, I accepted the absurd responsibility. We stayed at a luxury hotel, and the wedding was scheduled for the next day. The night before, someone added Chloe on social media, sending pictures and a video of herself with the groom in a passionate kiss at a bachelor's last hurrah party 20 miles away. Chloe shut off her phone calmly. "All right, ladies," she said to me and the bridesmaids, "let's crash a party." I never expected to see Julian again. For years had passed, and New York is enormous. Yet fate has a cruel sense of humor. At the party, Chloe made a scene, slapping the girl in the video. The groom, Kyle, merely watched with amusement, bound by their unspoken agreement. He could flirt, but if anyone challenged Chloe, he was not to intervene. Chloe tossed the girl out and straightened herself, preparing to approach Julian. She whispered to the bridesmaids, "That table. Anyone there is fair game, except the one in the middle." I followed her gaze. There he was, Julian. For years older, more intense, the last traces of boyishness replaced by quiet authority. A bridesmaid named Isabel eyed him with interest. "Why not him?" she asked. Chloe's tone was unusually serious. "He's way out of our league. Don't even think about it." I told Chloe I wasn't comfortable socializing. "Are you insane?" she exclaimed, dragging me forward. "You're gorgeous. You need to meet people like this." I gave in. Chloe greeted Julian warmly, using a nickname I didn't recognize. Julian was polite, but something had shifted. There was a distance now, a wall that made him approachable yet untouchable. Isabel tried to flirt, but Julian's response was minimal. Another guest corrected her politely, reinforcing his formal aura. Chloe then introduced me. The moment Julian's eyes met mine, the room seemed to narrow. My chest tightened under the weight of his gaze. I lifted my head slowly, forcing a composed smile. "Mr. Ford, it's nice to see you again." His lips pressed into a thin line, expression unreadable. On the surface, the gathering went on normally, but the tension between us was palpable. Then Julian spoke, quiet yet commanding. "Summer Hayes. Long time no see." The table fell silent. Chloe stammered in shock. "Wait, you and Mr. Ford, you know each other?" I kept my answer minimal. "We were classmates." Julian flinched slightly but rose slowly, moving toward me with a palpable, stormy energy. He stopped in front of me. "So, I don't even qualify as an ex-boyfriend?" I was unprepared for the question. Words failed me. Julian's patience wore thin. He looked at Kyle. "Time to wrap this up." As people dispersed, Julian grabbed my wrist. "I'll take you back." I tried to protest, but the touch sent a shock through me. I didn't resist. He led me out, away from prying eyes. The drive through New York City was silent, aimless, the scenery blurring past. I stayed quiet, pretending not to notice. Finally, I spoke. "Julian, I'm tired." He didn't respond immediately, but soon turned the car around. Half an hour later, we were back at the hotel. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stepped out. "Summer." His voice froze me. I looked back, his hands rested on the wheel, eyes unreadable. I remained silent. He closed his eyes briefly, hiding what emotion lingered, then opened them as if nothing had happened. "Good night." I gave a brief and hurried away, heart and mind in chaos. Back in my room, Chloe called. "Summer, you and Julian?" I cut her off. "Nothing's going on." She warned me about his family and fiancée, Claire Sterling, an old money socialite. I interrupted, assuring her I knew the stakes and wouldn't act recklessly. Finally, I let myself lean back, clutching the phone, memories of Julian replaying endlessly. 5 minutes, I decided, to bury him deep and regain some semblance of control. I had never witnessed a more miserable wedding than my cousin Chloe's. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Holt, was a formidable presence. Kyle had defied her to marry Chloe, and she was far from pleased. Only after imposing a long list of unreasonable demands, every single one of which Chloe met, did she reluctantly consent. From the moment the ceremony began, it was clear Chloe's life as a society bride would be fraught with difficulty. Mrs. Holt oversaw every detail of the reception, and Chloe followed behind, timid and constrained. One wrong word, one minor slip, and the wrath would fall. Chloe endured the barrage, forcing a smile while her spirit wilted. Mrs. Holt didn't stop at Chloe. She extended her disdain to the guests, including us, treating us as if we were invisible. During the speeches, Chloe mistakenly called a guest by the wrong name, a grievous error. The woman's face darkened instantly, and Chloe, mortified, followed her to a side room, where Mrs. Holt unleashed a merciless scolding. No one intervened. Kyle had warned Chloe before the wedding. Enduring his mother's temper was part of the deal, and he would not come to her aid. The other bridesmaids huddled in fear, too intimidated to act. I couldn't watch. Chloe was my family, and I refused to leave her alone. I knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Mrs. Holt's eyebrows shot up in irritation. Before she could speak, I said calmly, "Ma'am, the guests are waiting for the next part of the reception." She regarded me coolly. "Who gave you permission to enter? You have no manners. Leave." Chloe's face was pale, shame written across it. Perhaps she thought she could handle her mother-in-law's cruelty, but now it was overwhelming. I knew she was realizing the real challenge had just begun. I tried to defuse the tension. The bride's makeup is smudged. I can take her to fix it while you have a moment. Mrs. Holt sneered, casting her scorn at both Chloe and me. So this is your family. Of course. People from your background are always so. Knock. Knock. A tall, lean figure appeared at the doorway, his eyes locking onto me immediately. I've been looking everywhere for you. What are you doing in here? Mrs. Holt's voice turned cautious. Julian, you know Chloe's cousin? Chloe jumped in. Julian and my cousin were classmates. Recognition dawned, and Mrs. Holt's demeanor softened instantly. That explains it, she said with a faint laugh. Suddenly, she was warm and approving, patting Chloe's hand. Chloe, darling, you should learn from her. She's confident, decisive, and knows how to handle herself. Chloe and I were stunned by the sudden transformation. The wedding continued smoothly, all thanks to Julian Ford. Julian sat beside me, long legs stretched out. Are you returning to Charlotte after this? He asked. I avoided his gaze, answering curtly. Yes, my flight is booked for tomorrow morning. He was quiet, then murmured, New York has a lot to see. If you'd like, I could show you around. No, thanks, I replied firmly. I have work waiting. A pause. Then, softly, what time is your flight? I can drive you. I can take a cab, I said. Summer, his voice sharpened, a tension cutting through it. Is it always going to be this way? Always no. Desperate, I blurted. I have a boyfriend. We're planning to get married. Julian froze, as though struck by stone. I decided to leave New York as soon as possible, changing my flight if needed. Chloe pleaded with me to stay a few days, to help manage Mrs. Holt. But I refused, knowing that Julian's influence was the true leverage. I couldn't deny it. I was drawn to him. Every time he tried to close the distance, only to be rejected, his face etched with pain, my heart ached for him. Leaving New York should have been simple. Fate had other plans. On the way to the airport, a car accident threw my world into chaos. Tires screeched. My leg was trapped, my head struck hard. Sirens approached, the last sound I heard before blacking out. I woke in a hospital room. Julian was there, holding my hand, lips brushing my knuckles. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhaustion clear. The doctor explained my luck, a mild concussion and a hairline fracture. I would need a cast and weekly checkups. Surgery might be necessary if the bone shifted. I was temporarily immobilized. I tried to send him away. You should rest, I urged. No one else will take care of you, he insisted. I could hire a nurse. No. I wouldn't trust them. I considered calling Chloe, but Julian reminded me she was on her honeymoon. I had no options. At his home, a sprawling penthouse, he settled me in the master bedroom. He hovered, giving me no escape. I pretended to sleep, hoping he'd leave. He didn't. Gradually, I realized he was mapping my face with his fingertips, tracing every curve. My pulse spiked as he leaned closer, lips brushing mine. I gasped, pushed, but he ignored my resistance, deepening the kiss. When we pulled apart, both breathless, I demanded, Why are you doing this? Is it revenge for the breakup? Julian's body stiffened, jaw tight, hands clenched. After several deep breaths, he said, strained, Summer, don't say things just to hurt me. I seethed at him and at myself. For years of careful distance shattered with each step he took toward me. I surrendered piece by piece, powerless to resist. I gave Julian the cold shoulder, letting silence build a wall between us, a clear boundary he couldn't cross. If he pushed too far, my indifference would snap him back. Julian understood perfectly, but he tested those boundaries relentlessly, skirting right to the edge of what I could tolerate. Slowly, we fell into a tense rhythm, like two people balancing on a seesaw, each carefully keeping the other from tipping over. My leg needed 4 to 6 weeks to heal, and in that time, Julian barely left the apartment. Until the day an unexpected visitor arrived, his sister, Anna Ford. Julian had hired 2 full-time nurses and one let Anna in. I had never met his family before, and she wasted no time getting to the point. I knew my brother wouldn't be home today, so I came, she said, settling into the chair Julian usually occupied. What should I call you? Future sister-in-law? Or just Summer? Summer, I said, keeping it simple. She studied me quietly with sharp, intelligent eyes. I wanted to see for myself what kind of woman could make my brother lose his mind. Soon she began asking about my recovery. When will your leg be healed? I explained the upcoming checkup, and her invitation to her birthday party followed. I declined politely, saying I'd probably be back in Charlotte. Anna pressed on, dropping the real reason for her visit: Claire Sterling, Julian's former fiancée. I sidestepped it, keeping my tone firm. You're not surprised I know about you, she said, noting my calm. I assumed Julian told you, I replied. She laughed. No, he never said a word. He kept you a secret, careful not to make trouble. Then she began detailing everything Julian had done in my absence, breaking off the engagement, secretly running his own company, navigating the family business with precision. My life had been under scrutiny, without me realizing it. By the end, I realized Julian had been quietly fighting for me all these years. For the first time, I felt a courage to step toward his world. That evening, Julian returned. So, what did my sister say? He asked casually. She invited me to her party, I said. Are you going? I said no. I lied. He nodded, disappointment shadowing his expression. When the cast came off, Julian kept me at his apartment one more night under the pretense of helping me get used to walking. The next morning, I assumed he had left for the party. But in the bathroom, I walked in on him, fresh from a shower, towel around his waist. His damp hair clung to his forehead, chest exposed, silver chain around his neck catching the light. Embarrassed, I tried to leave. He grabbed my arm, pressing me against the counter, trapping me behind him. His eyes, dark and unreadable, met mine in the mirror. Are you going to leave? He asked. What? When I get home tonight, will you still be here? He cupped my jaw, leaned down, and pressed his lips to my neck. Heat spread through me, and I trembled. I'll be here, I whispered. He paused, tension coiling through him, but restrained himself. I turned in his arms, hugging him tightly. I'm not leaving today, I said softly. I'll wait for you no matter what. He froze for a moment, disbelief written across his face, then pulled me into a tight, consuming embrace. I went to Anna's birthday party with one goal: to meet Julian's mother. Mrs. Ford was exactly as I imagined, graceful, authoritative, impeccably dressed. The thought of the 4 years she had watched me, combined with the life I could have with Julian, made me hesitate. But seeing him again gave me courage. I approached her. Mrs. Ford, I'm Summer Hayes. I need to ask, can I be in love with your son? Her smile told me she understood. It wasn't just permission, it was recognition of equality, a promise of respect within his family. Anna entered on Julian's arm, radiant in a gown, and Julian played the perfect host. Midway through, Claire appeared, running into Julian's arms. Anna intervened, but he held up his hands, letting her release him without reacting. He didn't know I was there, but Anna did. She gestured to him, mouthing, Summer's here. Julian's head snapped toward me. Claire froze, confusion and tears on her face. He disentangled himself and moved toward me, leaving her to Anna. I made room on the sofa. Sit, I said softly. He did, still scanning my face for anger. I reached for the silver chain around his neck, the one holding the ring from our Canterbury ceremony. I slid it off, placed the ring back on my finger. It still fits, I whispered. Impulsively, I asked, can we leave early? He looked at me, confused, then nodded. Yes. I looked him in the eyes. I've missed you so much. Later, I asked what would have happened if I hadn't come. He held me tight. I promised I could do it in 5 years. I did it in 4. We were never going to miss each other. I was always running.